Hello and welcome to this special Antarctica edition of Burning Earth Radio. This is your host, Gerard Spring, coming to you from the north. So, last week there was a bunch of news stories that came out about Antarctica and what was happening down there with the ice sheets. And I think there was a NASA flight over the Antarctic peninsula, and they took some photos of this gigantic Antarctic rift that had split across the ice sheet, and it was starting to calve off. So there's a lot of damage going on with these ice sheets around Antarctica, and I want to talk a little bit about ice and sea ice in particular and what's going on with the climate system overall. So if you don't believe in climate change and abrupt climate change, then you definitely will after this one, because the things that I'm about to show you are extremely, extremely important. So zooming in here on the Antarctic peninsula, and the location where this happened was the Larsen Ice shelf, which is located basically here at the end of the Antarctic peninsula. I believe it was on the southern end. There was this large crack or rift which had opened up in the ice sheet, and the ice sheet was starting to calve off and pass off into the Southern Ocean. So I've pulled up the sea ice data for Antarctica today, and I think this will be a great starting point to talk about the state of the ice in general. And what you can see is that the sea ice in Antarctica is really retreating back from the blue line, which indicates the long-term average of the sea ice data. And the sea ice here is also really fragmented, and it's opening up very wide holes almost in the ice sheet overall. It's basically disintegrating from within. Even if you look here off the Ross ice shelf too, this sea ice is disintegrating away from the coast. So if we swing up into the Arctic, we can also see that the sea ice is simultaneously very low. Here in the Hudson Bay, for example, there's no sea ice. Up here off the coast of Greenland here, Baffin Island up here, there's not really much sea ice. It's not retreating down as far as it used to. It's not forming on the Labrador coast. Also, the sea ice isn't extending off of Greenland like it usually does. It's way back closer to the coast than usual. The Kara Sea is supposed to be totally frozen, but it's, here only about half frozen. And all of this water between the Russian islands over here in Svalbard is open water, basically, and it's December. So I've gone ahead and made a plot that plots the total global sea ice extent in millions of square K versus the day of the year. So this is all of the ice in the sea ice in the Arctic Ocean plus all of the sea ice in the Southern Ocean around Antarctica. And I'm using the average here of 1980 to 2010. So all of this black line represents the 1980 to 2010 average. And I've plotted a couple other years here of interest. Back in 1980, for example, we can see that there's some deviation from this line. 2012 was a really bad year. It was continuously low throughout the entire year, Antarctica plus the Arctic Ocean, the Arctic Mediterranean. And I want to draw your attention to 2016, which is the red line. This is this year. And we can see that around December, there's a local maximum of the sea ice for the entire planet, Southern Ocean plus Arctic Mediterranean. There's a local maximum here that is historically very average. And I've plotted the number of standard deviations away from average in these grayed out areas. So one standard deviation is the dark gray, 2 standard deviations is the lighter gray, and then 5 standard deviations is this light gray. So we can see that this 2016 ice crash that we've been going through is well below the black curve. It's well below the 5 standard deviations from average even. And for those of you guys who are interested in particle physics and astrophysics and these types of studies, 5 standard deviations away from average is the gold standard for a discovery. So a 5 sigma observation in physics basically indicates that whatever we've observed, in this case the sea ice crash, has a 1 in 3.5 million chance of being a statistical anomaly or random fluctuation. So, according to the gold standard of physics, a historically anomalous behavior with the sea ice. And I think it's really, really important to look at data this way. I think there was another plot that showed this, but I think that this plotted this way, it's a better way to interpret the data because you can really understand how significant the sea ice crash is relative to the other statistical data. So if we look over here at Climate Reanalyzer at the temperature anomaly over Antarctica, we can see that the temperature anomalies aren't that huge. There's a few warm areas, there's a few colder areas here on the coast, Antarctic Peninsula. So the temperature anomaly isn't that strong in Antarctica. And this is because the southern hemisphere has a lot more ocean, it has a lot more water. But still you're seeing these massive sea ice crashes in Antarctica now. It's far below average, just the Antarctic sea ice by itself. And the way it's breaking up is very anomalous, which in a lot of ways you're starting to see more temperature anomalies over Antarctica perhaps that are reflecting these types of sea ice anomalies. However, if we swing over here into the Arctic and take a look at what's going on up in the northern hemisphere, you can see that we have a 20 degrees plus C anomaly, a huge 20 degrees C plus anomaly over the eastern Siberian ice shelf here. It's extremely warm, dipping down into Siberia. And then we have this very, very, very cold area over North America, where it's in North Dakota now, 20 degrees colder than average. And if you recall the Dakota cyclone video that I did a couple weeks ago, there was a plus 10 degrees temperature anomaly also over North Dakota. So in 2 to 3 weeks, we've had a plus 30 degrees C temperature anomaly, total difference in this area of North America right here. So, I mean, this is a completely extreme temperature anomaly, folks. I mean, this is not the polar vortex or anything like this, everyone. I mean, when you're going from plus 10 to minus 20 degrees C temperature anomaly changes, these are symptoms of abrupt climate change. Also, too, I mean, if we're looking over here at Greenland, I mean, Greenland is just generally warm, and there's some pretty severe temperature anomalies here in Europe as well. 7-8 degrees C here, the south of Scandinavia, warmer than average, also in the UK. So swinging back over here to the Larsen Ice shelf, you're also seeing changes in the ice shelves as well. And this is not typically considered a part of sea ice because it's more related to the continental effect, or the fact that Antarctica is really close by. So these ice shelves are starting to also break up along with the sea ice. And there's a lot of really severe climate changes like this going on, folks. I think it's important to realize just how severe these anomalies are. Ice shelves breaking off, ice crash in Antarctica, ice crash in the Arctic, 5 standard deviations difference from normal. So please spread the word about this, and please share this presentation, because it's, at this point, really critical to get the word out about the level of the climate changes that are going on out there. So with that, folks, I think I'm going to wrap up this special Antarctica edition of Burning Earth Radio. If you enjoyed the show, please comment, like, and subscribe. I'm looking forward to having you along in the next one.